places that carry more than just dust and silence. Some homes hold on to memories, painful, twisted, and hungry. This is the story of a man who moved into such a place where the past hadn't died, it had just moved to the ceiling. Tom had just ended a messy breakup and was desperate for a fresh start. When he found a one-bedroom apartment for half the usual rent, he didn't ask too many questions. Not the landlord barely made eye contact and rushed through the contract. "Just don't worry about the noises," he said vaguely. That should have been the first warning. The apartment was in an old brick building on the edge of town. It had creaky wooden floors, faded wallpaper, and a constant chill, even during the day. Tom figured he'd warm it up with some lamps and maybe a rug. He tried to ignore the scratches on the bedroom ceiling. They were long, thin, and almost deliberate. The first few days were uneventful, but every night around 3 a.m., Tom would wake up. Not to a sound, but to a feeling, like something was hovering over him. He told himself it was just stress, but then came the sounds. On the fifth night, he was brushing his teeth when he heard soft dragging from above, like someone crawling slowly on hands and knees, but from the ceiling. He froze, toothbrush still in his mouth, and stared at the light fixture above him. It gently swayed, though no window was open. That night he lay in bed and stared up. His eyes adjusted to the dark. He told himself, "There's nothing there." But then he saw her, a faint outline at first, a shape that shouldn't have been there. Then it became clear, a woman pressed flat against the ceiling. Her limbs were too long, her head slowly turned toward him, even though the rest of her body didn't move. Her eyes locked onto his. Tom jolted upright, switched on the lamp, and she was gone. The next morning, he found fingerprints on the ceiling above his bed, long, dark smudges. He called the landlord, but no one answered. He called a friend to stay over, but they left after one night, refusing to say why. Things escalated quickly. The lights flickered at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night. The TV would switch on by itself, always to static. And in the mirror, Tom Samsam saw her standing behind him, upside down, smiling. One night, desperate and sleep-deprived, he set up his phone to record himself sleeping. The next morning, he reviewed the footage. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the bedroom door opened by itself. Then, from the top corner of the frame, she descended. Not walked, not crawled. She slowly lowered from the ceiling, her face just above his, watching him breathe. At one point, she whispered something close to the camera. When he slowed the audio down, it sounded like, "You looked at me. Now I can come down." That night, Tom tried sleeping on the couch again. He wrapped himself in blankets, kept every light on. But it didn't matter. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. The ceiling above him began to bulge, as if something was pressing from the other side. He stood, frozen in fear. Then from the corner of the ceiling, she peeled herself down, like a spider lowering its body. Her head twisted unnaturally as she stared at him. Tom ran, out the door, down the stairs. He never went back. Later, he looked up the building's history. He found one article, 10 years ago. A woman was found dead in that apartment. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, but the strangest part? She was found on the ceiling, face up, arms spread, eyes open. They said she had clawed her way up and never came down. Some places don't forget, some spirits don't forgive, and some not are still watching from above, waiting for you to open your eyes. They say some windows don't show the outside world. Some show something else. Another place, another presence. And if you ever hear a soft tapping at night, don't look, because what's outside the window might already be inside. This is the story of a man who made one small mistake. He looked when he wasn't supposed to, and once it sees you, it never forgets your face. Don't look at the window, full story. Jake had always preferred quiet corners of the world. So when he found a small apartment on the top floor of an aging building downtown, he felt lucky. The paint was old, the floor creaked, and the building smelled faintly of dust, but it was cheap and peaceful. One large bedroom, a narrow hallway, and a wide window that looked out into a dark, narrow alley. Nothing unusual. The first 2 nights were uneventful, just silence and city hum. But on the third night, Jake woke up to a sound. Tap, tap, tap. At first, he thought it was coming from the radiator. But as he turned toward the window, he saw something off. There was a man standing in the alley, not moving, just standing there, head tilted upward, staring directly at Jake's window. The man wore a long coat, but his face looked like it had been wiped clean. No eyes, no mouth, just pale, featureless skin. Jake stared, heart pounding. Then he shut the curtain and tried to convince himself it was a trick of the light. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, 2:34 a.m., same tapping. The figure was back, standing closer than before. Jake called the landlord the next day. "There's someone standing in the alley at night," he said. The landlord paused for a long time, then said, "You're in 4C, right?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, don't look at the window." "What do you mean?" The landlord sighed. "Others before you saw him. Once you do, he sees you too, and he follows." Jake laughed awkwardly. "You're joking, right?" But the landlord didn't smile. He just walked away. That night, Jake stayed up. He taped the curtain shut. He played music to block out the tapping, but at 2:34 a.m. it returned. Tap, tap, tap. He turned toward the window. Though the curtain was covered, he could see the outline of a head pressed against the glass. He grabbed his phone and ran out of the room. He slept in the hallway. The next morning, the curtain was still taped, but the window was unlocked. From then on, it escalated. The tapping started coming from different windows. The bathroom mirror began fogging on its own, and once Jake saw the words, "Let me in," written in the mist. Whispers followed, low, dry voices calling his name, telling him to look, telling him to open the window, telling him to let it in. One night, Jake had enough. He decided to stay and record everything. He set up cameras, turned on every light, sat by the door with a bat in his hand. At 2:34 a.m., everything went silent. No tapping, just stillness. Then his phone buzzed. A message, no number, just words. "Why did you stop looking?" The lights flickered, the temperature dropped, then the sound came, tap, tap, tap. But this time from behind him, he turned slowly. The man, the one from the alley, was standing in the middle of his living room, eyes black, skin pale, smiling wide. Jake screamed, and then everything went black. He woke up on the floor hours later, alone. The front door was still locked, but when he checked the footage, it had been wiped clean. No man, no tapping, just static. Jake moved out the next day, new apartment, new city, but at 2:34 a.m. every night, tap, 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 it still comes. The man in the window. And Jake knows he can move, he can run, but once it sees your face, it never forgets. If you ever hear tapping at night, whatever you do, don't look at the window, because what's outside is already looking for you. Some hotel rooms are never meant to be booked. Some doors should stay shut forever. This is the story of a man, a room long forgotten, and a night that refused to let go. Adam was used to traveling. As a marketing executive, he had stayed in dozens of hotels across the country. But that rainy Thursday night, he found himself in a quiet, almost forgotten town called Elmridge. He had a client meeting the next morning and needed a place to stay. The only nearby option was a small, Victorian-style hotel called the Pines Inn. The building looked aged, its neon sign flickering dimly in the rain. Inside, the lobby smelled of dust and old wood. An elderly woman at the front desk, with pale blue eyes and shaking hands, greeted him. When she saw his online booking, her expression changed slightly. "You've been assigned room 313, she said softly. "It's at the end of the north wing. But are you sure you want that one?" Adam raised an eyebrow. "Why? Is it haunted or something?" He joked. The woman didn't smile. She handed him the key card with a weak hand, whispering something under her breath as he turned away. He couldn't make out the words. The hallway to room 313 was long, with faded carpet and walls that looked like they hadn't been painted in decades. A low hum filled the corridor, though he couldn't tell where it was coming from. Room 313 was the last door on the left, beside a sealed fire exit. As he opened the door, a rush of cold air hit him. The room was dimly lit and smelled musty. The furniture was outdated, an old writing desk, a velvet armchair, and a tall mirror with a golden frame above the desk. The bed looked clean, but the silence in the room was unnatural. No outside sounds, no wind, no creaking pipes. After taking a quick shower, Adam settled into bed with his phone. That's when he noticed something strange. In the mirror across from the bed, the room looked darker. The lights, though on, appeared off in the reflection. The bed and the mirror looked untouched. Worst of all, he wasn't in it. He sat up, staring at the mirror. There was no reflection of himself. Nothing. Just the empty room. Then, slowly, a figure began to appear in the mirror. A man wearing a bellhop uniform from the 1950s. Pale face, mouth open as if in a silent scream. Standing behind the bed. Adam jumped up and turned around. The room was empty. He looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer now, standing at the foot of the bed. Suddenly, the mirror cracked in the center. The room's lights flickered and the door slammed shut on its own. Adam ran to it, twisting the knob, but it wouldn't open. Then from the TV, a burst of static filled the room. The screen switched on by itself, though he hadn't touched the remote. From the static, a whisper emerged. "You don't belong here." Adam stumbled backward, breathing heavily. He grabbed his phone, but the screen was black, completely dead. That's when he heard footsteps, slow and wet, moving across the carpet behind him. He turned. Nothing. But on the cracked mirror, fog appeared, as if someone had breathed on it from the inside. And written in that fog was a single word: "Stay." Panicking, he opened the drawers of the desk, hoping to find a phone or anything. Inside one drawer, he found an old guest book, covered in ash and soot. All the names were crossed out, except one. Jonathan Reeves, bellhop, checked in permanently. Below the name, someone had scribbled, "He never left. He waits for the last guest." Suddenly, the lights went out again. He heard 3 slow knocks at the door. Knock, knock, knock. He looked through the peephole. There was only darkness. No hallway. No person. Just a black void staring back at him. At some point, he must have passed out. When he woke up, sunlight was pouring through the window. The mirror was intact. The TV was off. His phone was fully charged. Confused and scared, he grabbed his bag and rushed downstairs. A young man was now at the front desk. Adam asked about room 313. The man looked confused. "Room 313? Sir, we haven't had a room 313 since 2009. That entire section of the 3rd floor was destroyed in a fire. We sealed it off years ago." Adam demanded to be shown, but when they went upstairs, the hallway ended at room 311. Beyond that, a brick wall. No room 313. No door. Nothing. Adam never stayed in a small-town hotel again. But sometimes when he checks into a new room and catches his reflection in a mirror, he swears he sees someone else behind him, a man in a bellhop's uniform, smiling, waiting, because room 313 still exists somewhere between time and shadow. And if you ever find yourself standing in front of a hotel door that wasn't on the map, don't knock, because you might not be the guest. You might be the replacement. The man in the window. Some houses don't want to be lived in. They don't creak because they're old. They groan because something inside them is still awake. This is the story of a man who moved into such a house and found someone watching from a window that should have been empty. Story begins. After a rough breakup and a job transfer, Daniel Carter, 32, was desperate for a fresh start. So when a rental property appeared online for less than half the usual price, a 2-bedroom house on Willow Lane, quiet, detached with a yard, he didn't ask many questions. The landlord, an older man with tired eyes, handed him the keys in silence. Just before leaving, he said something odd. "Keep the 2nd bedroom window shut, no matter what." Daniel chuckled awkwardly. "Any particular reason?" The man didn't answer. He just turned and walked away. The house itself wasn't bad. A little dusty, faint smell of old wood and closed-up air. But the space was cozy. Hardwood floors, big kitchen, a fireplace in the living room. Only the 2nd bedroom felt colder. It wasn't just temperature. It was something else. Like the air in that room didn't move the same way. It felt heavier, denser. The window in that room faced the backyard, and though the view was unremarkable, just a fence and trees, Daniel found himself avoiding it. That night, as Daniel unpacked boxes, he passed by the 2nd bedroom and noticed the curtain in front of the window swaying gently. The fan wasn't on. None of the other curtains were moving. He went inside to check. The window was shut. Still, he locked it and pulled the curtain tight. Around 2:57 a.m., Daniel woke to a faint noise. Tap. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails on glass. He froze. The sound was coming from the 2nd bedroom. He crept to the door, hand trembling, and opened it just a crack. The curtain was still, but something about the room felt occupied. He forced himself to step in. Nothing. He checked the window. It was still locked, but there were fresh smudges on the glass, as if someone had pressed their face and hands from the outside or from inside. The next day, Daniel went to the hardware store and bought nails, a hammer, and blackout cloth. He nailed the curtain shut over the window and moved a shelf in front of it. Problem solved. That night, he slept a little better until his phone lit up at 3:14 a.m. with a notification. Motion detected in guest room. His heart dropped. He had set up a motion camera app just as a joke, but now, when he checked the recording, it showed the blackout curtain twitching, then slowly pulling upward despite being nailed down. From behind it, a face leaned forward, pale, eyeless, with thin lips curled into a smile. It hovered there for over a minute, and then vanished. By the fourth day, Daniel was unraveling. He barely ate. He stayed out of the house as long as he could, roaming malls and parking lots at night, only returning when he had to. He spoke to his neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Langley, who'd lived on Willow Lane her entire life. "You're staying in the Holloway house?" she said with a sharp breath. "They found a man in there once. Locked himself in that very room, covered the window with towels, boxes, even painted it shut. Said he saw someone staring at him through the glass, but the window faced a wall back then. There was nothing outside." Daniel felt sick. "What happened to him?" he asked. "Vanished," she whispered. But before that, he kept saying something strange. "He's only real if you see him." That night, Daniel tried sleeping in the living room. He left the second bedroom locked, blocked, and buried under furniture. At 3 a.m., the house creaked louder than usual. Daniel sat up, heart pounding. Tap, tap. But it wasn't coming from the bedroom. It was coming from the living room window, right behind him. He turned, nothing there. Then his phone buzzed. Another photo notification. He opened it. It was a picture of him, taken moments ago, asleep on the couch. But he hadn't taken it. In the window's reflection behind him stood a tall, pale man with no eyes. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He left that night with only a bag and his phone. He called the landlord the next morning to break the lease. The landlord didn't seem surprised. "Did you see him?" he asked calmly. "Most people don't stay long enough." "Who is he?" Daniel asked. "What does he want?" "Not sure," the landlord replied. "But once you see him, he follows you." Daniel moved 3 towns away. New place, new job, new apartment, no windows facing the backyard, no tapping, no creaking, no curtain movement. He started to relax, began sleeping through the night again, until one night just after 3 a.m., he got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of his new apartment, taken from inside the living room window. And in the reflection, the man was still smiling.